Everyone thinks they already know which memory they'd erase. He thought so too. By the time this hour ends, you'll find out if he was right. The rule was simple enough that nobody had ever needed it explained twice. One memory, chosen alone, inside 1 hour, gone the moment he closed the switch. And if the hour ended before he chose, it wouldn't come around again. Not for him. Not ever. He knew exactly which memory he'd come for. He'd known before he sat down, before the clock started, maybe before he ever agreed to any of this. People rarely walk into a room like this one undecided. By the time anyone qualifies for an hour like this, they've usually spent years auditioning the memory that deserves it. Years ago, at 2 in the morning, his phone rang. He looked at the name. Some people answer a call like that without thinking. He wasn't one of them, that particular night. He was tired, and warm, and certain, the way you're only ever certain about something you'll regret, that whatever it was could wait until morning. He silenced it, turned back over, went back to sleep the way you close a door on something you've already decided is small. It's a strange thing about small decisions. Most of them stay small. They get made half-conscious, in the dark, by people who fully intend to be reasonable about it in the morning. And mostly, that's exactly what happens. Mostly, morning arrives, and nothing is owed to anyone. In the morning, he learned why they'd called. This script doesn't get to know what it was. Neither does he. Not really. Not the shape of it. Not in words anyone ever gave him. He only knows the size of the space it left behind. He has spent a very long time since then, filling that space in with guesses, none of which he trusts, all of which he's rehearsed. That's the version he's rehearsed the longest. The version with an ending he can actually point to, even if the ending is only the size of a silence. Most people, asked which memory they'd erase, answer fast, too fast maybe, to have really looked. He'd answered that question in his head 100 times before this hour ever started. In the shower, driving, half asleep, the exact way he'd been half asleep that night. Today, for the first time, the question was actually his to answer, out loud, with consequences, in a room built for nothing else. He didn't hesitate. Not yet. Waiting turned out to be its own kind of work. He hadn't expected that. An hour is a long time to sit still with one decision. His hand found the photograph before the rest of him agreed to let it. He didn't decide to turn it over. His hand did that on its own, the way hands sometimes make decisions faster than the person attached to them. Something in a doorway, a voice, his or hers, he couldn't have said, a door, already most of the way closed. Not that one. He didn't let himself finish the thought. Some thoughts get further if you don't chase them. He went back to the one he'd actually come for, the one with an ending he could point to, the one that, at least, made sense as a reason, written down, in order, the way a reason is supposed to. He'd been building the case for this memory for years, long before there was ever a room to bring it into. Small things, mostly. The kind nobody else would think to add up, and the kind that only add up to anything at all once somebody finally sits down and does the arithmetic. A habit of checking his phone at strange hours, for no reason connected to anything actually happening in the room he was standing in. He'd stopped noticing he did it years ago. Other people hadn't. A few had asked him about it, gently, and he'd given them an answer that wasn't a lie, exactly. Just not the whole shape of the truth either. The kind of half-answer that satisfies a question without ever quite closing it. He played it again, the ring, his hand already moving toward the phone. The half-second where he could still have gone either way, and didn't. Each time he played it, the case against keeping it got a little more organized, a little more like something he could actually present, if anyone ever thought to ask him for it, which, until today, nobody ever had. That's the strange privilege of an hour like this one. Somebody is finally asking, and for once, he'd come prepared with an answer that held together, start to finish, without a single gap he had to talk around. By the third replay, he wasn't rehearsing the memory anymore. He was rehearsing the reason. It's a useful skill, building a good reason. Most people are better at it than they'd ever admit out loud. Here's a thing he'd never once said out loud, not even rehearsing. The habit hadn't only cost him. It had been doing something too, all these years, quietly, in the background. Like a tax he'd stopped noticing he paid, and had also, somewhere along the way, stopped resenting. Every phone he'd picked up since, at every strange hour, he'd picked up at least partly because of the one he hadn't. He'd become, somewhere in the years since, a person who showed up, who answered, who didn't let a silence sit unexamined if he could help it. Nobody in his life knew why. He'd never once explained it, because explaining it would have meant telling the story, and he had built an entire hour's worth of reasons not to. People rarely explain their own good habits. Only the bad ones seem to need a story attached. Erase the reason, and the habit built on top of it doesn't necessarily go with it. But maybe it does. He didn't actually know. That was the part he hadn't rehearsed. He picked the photograph back up. On purpose this time. An ordinary morning, nothing in it worth remembering, except that it turned out to be the last one, which is the one detail that turns an ordinary morning into the only morning anyone still thinks about. Breakfast, something small, forgotten by lunch normally, that they'd argued about, the kind of argument that doesn't survive the day it happens, in any other version of that day. I'll see you tonight. That was the whole of it. That was the entire last thing either of them ever said to the other. No warning in it, no wait. Nobody in that kitchen had any reason to remember it carefully. He remembers it carefully anyway. Every word. The exact tone. Which one of them said it first? He'd known this memory was in the room the entire hour. He just hadn't let it finish being a memory until now. Under 5 minutes now. There's a particular kind of quiet that only shows up when a decision finally has to stop being theoretical. 2 memories left in the room with him. 2 different versions of a man he could choose to spend the rest of his life being. Neither one of them had ever really left him alone. He was only now admitting that in a room built to make him choose which one got to stay, which, put another way, meant choosing which one he was finally allowed to stop carrying. One of them made him someone who still had to answer for something. The other simply hurt, and kept hurting, and never once asked anything of him in return. One was a debt. The other was just weather. The clock didn't care which one he kept. It only cared that he chose one. There wasn't much to it, really. No sound, no flash. Just a switch that had been open, and then wasn't. Whatever else that kind of decision deserves, it apparently doesn't deserve ceremony. The clock didn't stop for it. Clocks don't. Whatever a person just decided inside a room, and whatever it cost them to decide it. An hour later, the room looked exactly like it had at the start. Same chair, same clock, more or less back where it began. Nobody had come in to change anything. Almost exactly. He stood up, reached for his phone, out of a habit that had outlived whatever it was originally for, a habit with nothing left, now, to be about. Everyone thinks they already know which memory they'd erase.